Facing a loved one's death with right view. Hello and welcome to this content exploration. Today, we're diving into a record of a master's Dharma talk. It touches on some ideas I find quite profound and perhaps a bit challenging to our usual way of thinking. The main theme revolves around the concept of right view, from which the master discusses a very practical and sometimes difficult the situation that many people face: what to do when a loved one, like a parent or a child, passes away. So, in this session, we'll examine what the master says to see if we can find some new perspectives or wisdom. Let's begin. The starting point of the text is right view. The master explained that in the Buddhist Eightfold Path, right view is the most fundamental element. If your perspective and understanding are correct, then your thoughts, words, and actions are more likely to stay on the right path. However, the master then posed a very interesting question. Is knowing that doing bad deeds leads to hell considered right view? This sounds like basic knowledge, but the question is meant to guide us to deeper thoughts. The master explained that simply knowing the law of cause and effect, that what you do leads to certain results, is a form of right view. Because when you understand this, you know to avoid bad deeds and do good ones. So, the key to right view is truly and accurately understanding the law of cause and effect. It's about understanding the principle itself. The master then used a story, the death of a beloved son, to illustrate how to apply right view in life, especially in extreme situations of pain, like the passing of a loved one. I believe this part is what you were particularly interested in. That's right. This is a famous story. It tells of a father working in the field when his son is unfortunately bitten and killed by a venomous snake. What's surprising is that the father doesn't break down and cry. Instead, he remains calm and continues his work, only sending a message home to prepare food for one less person. People around him found this reaction cold-hearted and unusual, thinking he was heartless. So, how did the master explain this calmness from the perspective of right view? The master's explanation reveals a deeper layer of wisdom and compassion. He pointed out that if the father had cried uncontrollably and suffered immensely, like most people would, who would have caused that suffering? The son's death, right, from the perspective of karma. It would be as if the deceased son had indirectly incurred a karma of unfilial conduct for causing his father such great pain. This is a truly groundbreaking idea. So, by not showing great pain, the father was actually protecting his son. Exactly. Because the father had right view and wisdom, he was able to transcend ordinary emotional reactions. He didn't allow himself to get trapped in that immense sorrow. By doing so, he preserved his son's merits. His lack of suffering was the greatest act of compassion for his son. From the son's perspective, this allowed for his filial piety to be fulfilled. The mother in the story also shared a similar view, seeing her son's passing as a natural cycle and believing that excessive grief was unhelpful. This really offers a very different perspective on grief and filial piety. It suggests that excessive sorrow, whether for a deceased parent or child, can actually become a burden for them. The master's teaching is that true compassion and filial piety mean wishing the other person well and for their peace. If you are extremely sad, wouldn't the deceased person, who cares about you, feel uneasy? Yes. And if they are uneasy, then that is not true filial piety or compassion. Conversely, if we can remain relatively calm, or even recite scriptures and perform meritorious deeds on their behalf, and dedicate the merits to them, this is the action that truly helps them. This brings us to the next practical question. What does the text say about offerings and worship? The record mentions that the master affirmed the benefits of making offerings. However, there's a key point. He emphasized that the ownership of the offered items belongs to the deceased. Therefore, their descendants should not eat them or give them away, as that would be considered stealing. What if the food might spoil? You can act on behalf of the deceased and give the food to small animals and insects. I see, there's a lot of detail to that. What about the money given as condolences? That money also belongs to the deceased. Therefore, it should be used for the deceased. For example, to build or maintain their tombs. Or, if we believe the deceased would have agreed, the money can be used to make offerings to the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha in their name. It turns out there are a lot of nuances to handling these post-mortem affairs. Finally, the text mentions the name of the sutra on the 5 no returns. What does no return mean? No return simply means non-retrogression. Non-retrogression. Yes. It refers to the fact that the family in the story had reached a very stable level of understanding and practice of the Dharma and right view. They would no longer waver or fall back into their previous erroneous views or mundane emotional reactions. Their actions, especially their reactions to death, were a manifestation of this non-retrogressive right view. I understand, from starting with right view as the foundation of practice, to how to use wisdom to face great shocks like the death of a loved one, and finally to this stable state of non-retrogression. This content has given us a lot to think about. It also leaves us with a question to ponder together when we encounter various ups and downs in life, especially the emotionally difficult experiences of separation and death. Do our reactions come from a stable form of wisdom? Or are we repeatedly caught in our emotional habits? And how can we cultivate that non-retrogressive right view? This is indeed a topic worth continuously exploring and practicing. I hope today's content has been insightful for you.